Greetings, superior beings, greetings, supreme being. We are all the human race, our common enemy is death. Welcome on Try Something.Vegetarian. Or vegan. This is the broadcast. Internet shut down in Iran. This reminds me of Stuxnet. People have a right, of course, to freedom of speech, which they have disabled for Iran on the global stage. So in reality, how many people know about this internet shutdown in Iran? I plan to read this article during this broadcast. Why Iran's internet shutdown is a stark warning for Russia. Forbes.com. So let's read this. And it's a review. People can, of course, visit Forbes.com to read the article for themselves. So I will be pausing it when I deem it necessary.
Why Iran's internet shutdown is a stark warning for Russia's Zach contributor cybersecurity. I write about security and surveillance. Russian President Vladimir Putin meets Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Iranian President Hassan Rouhani in Sochi. Getty Images. With escalating public protest over steep fuel price rises, Iran shut down its internet over the weekend to prevent images and videos leaking to the outside world, and to frustrate attempts by protesters to organize themselves. The move, which was described by NetBlocks as one of the most complex ever tracked and took a full 24 hours to put into effect, started on November 15. By the following evening, Iran's largest mobile network operators, including MCI, Ritel and Irancell, subsequently fell offline. A day later, internet connectivity was down at around 5%, with only the authorities and a few of the official news outlets maintaining connectivity. Even for a country as restricted as Iran, with material limitations on the information accessible from inside its borders, this is extreme, the most severe recorded in Iran since President Rouhani came to power, and the most severe disconnection tracked by NetBlocks in any country in terms of its technical complexity and breadth. As reported by AFP, the Supreme National Security Council took the decision and used the ISNA news agency to indicate the shutdown was only intended to last a day. While some reports continued to leak onto social media, the news flow has been stemmed. Today in Innovation. As localized as the situation in Iran might seem, it is part of an increasing trend by authoritarian regimes to control public access to information and the outside world, where once this seemed the preserve of China given its firewalled internet structure. Technical advances have enabled clampdowns in places as diverse as Kashmir and Moscow. A recent Freedom on the Net report claimed that automated monitoring of citizens' access to information and use of social media has now become endemic, impacting a full 90% of internet users around the world. Promoted, but the situation in Iran should serve as a particularly acute warning to Russia given the timing. At the beginning of this month, President Vladimir Putin secured his own internet shutdown capability, the so-called sovereign internet that enables his government to disconnect the country from the rest of the world, transferring to a domestic-only network and severing links to non-Russian websites and services. The deployment of this so-called RUNet was signed into law in May, and deployment of the technology within the country's internet access points began in October. As of now, the country's connectivity authorities are testing the effectiveness of this kill switch. The public justification for this new capability is to defend Russia in the event of threats to the stability, security and integrity of the functioning of the Internet and the public communications network. In other words, a cyber attack by the US, its allies or its proxies. But critics have denounced the regressive step for its isolationist and censorship risk, arguing that it introduces a Chinese-style firewall to both disconnect Russia from the world and also systemize the use of deep packet inspection to monitor the day-to-day usage of the Internet by citizens. Freedom on the Net has warned that Russian Internet freedom has now declined for the 6th year in a row, restricting online anonymity and increasing censorship. In August, The Russian authorities used a targeted internet shutdown to hamper its own protesters who were gathering to denounce elements of Putin's rule. Moscow's three main mobile network operators, MTS, Megafon and Vimpelcom, shut down their mobile internets, explaining this was caused by overcrowding, but according to BBC Russia, it was at the request of the city's authorities. The networks were told to inform customers there were no difficulties in providing services. And so for anyone assuming the new internet kill switch would never be used by Putin to stem national-level protests or escalating political dissent, they should maybe think again. In truth, the lesson from Iran plays into Russia's hands. The complexity of an actual shutdown is lessened when a switch is built into the system, which in fact comes with a twist. As much as these latest events should serve as a warning to Russia's 150 million citizens, one could also assume that Tehran will be looking at making the job of effecting such a shutdown easier next time around. And they only need to look as far as Moscow for advice and assistance in that regard. Forbes.com The UDHR is not a legally binding treaty. At the time of the UDHR's drafting, British representatives were frustrated that it had no legal, as opposed to moral, force. September 30, 2016. Why UDHR is not legally binding. Those that sign the UDHR show that they are committed to its implementation, and often integrate parts of it into their legally binding state instruments. These UDHR rights and principles have been included in international instruments that are legally binding, like the ICPA. June 2, 2016. Iran blocks nearly all internet access. The New York Times. 14 hours ago, Iran imposed an almost complete nationwide internet blackout on Sunday, one of its most draconian attempts to cut off Iranians from each other. Tehran attacks U.S. for supporting rioters after a weekend of in-depth. Daily Mail. 7 hours ago, is Iran losing the Middle East? Opinion. The Jerusalem Post. 18 hours ago, Iran's top leader warns thugs as protests reach 100 cities. In-depth. Politico. 17 hours ago. Why Iran's internet shutdown is a stark warning for Russia. Forbes. 9 hours ago, with escalating public protest over steep fuel price rises, Iran shut down its internet over the weekend to prevent images and videos leaking to. Iran has shut off internet access for its citizens amid fuel price. MIT Technology Review. 3 hours ago, they have different causes and aims but mass protests from In-depth. USA Today. 4 hours ago, how the Iranian government shut off the internet. In-depth. Wired. 18 hours ago, view all.
So I see Iran International still broadcasting. How is that possible then? Well, 5% of the internet communications is still happening. Looking if others are reporting about this.
Protests erupt in Iran over fuel price hike, more than 1,000 people arrested. Airing News. 1.2K views. 15 hours ago. The Internet is a popular source of news in Iran. App Archive 1.2K views 4 years ago. Manifestations in Iran, Comprecaire, Alexis à l'Internet Coupe. France 24 no views 27 minutes ago. Precarious calm, access to the Internet cut. Iran protests, Tehran burns as dozens dead in 107 cities amid Internet blackout. News 247, The News 247, 5 views 43 minutes ago. Iran revolts. What are the real reasons for the uprising against the mullahs? Iran Azayana Kalkst, Malaura Karskom Gerskslrinder, Azerbaijan City, 17K views streamed 3 hours ago. Internet in Iran has collapsed, no connection today. Iranian pistachio exporters and agricultural goods, 6 views 4 hours ago. The Internet is shut down in Iran but not the revolution of Trump. Som_23, 39 views 8 hours ago.
Take back the oil. Once you go over and take back that oil, they have nothing.
But how do you take it
back? Right, you have to go in. You have to go in.
With ground troops.
Well, you bomb the hell out of them, and then you encircle it, and then you go in, and you let Mobil go in, and you let our great oil companies go in. Yeah. Once you take that oil, they have nothing left.
Okay, if it's Fox News, then I can play it. I won't play CNN anymore because of some copyright infringement supposedly. And now I've lost my live streaming capability because of this. So CNN is fake news according to Trump. Watch out with CNN. And I think about this internet shutdown that it has to do with their planned world war over Iran. And that Putin won't agree with sanctions. So he won't allow Trump to take their cancer oil and to kill their families, which he talks about in this Fox News video.
Correct war.
Yeah. Well, we see that happening in
The other thing is with the terrorists, you have to take out their families. When you get these terrorists, you have to take out their families. They care about their lives. Don't kid yourself. But they say they don't care about their lives. You have to take out their families.
Well, of course, it's clear most Iranian people are not terrorists, and what their preference is after the depleted uranium war crime, etc., doesn't turn them into terrorists themselves either, if they think that it's good when they fight back against military that kill their children and kill their families. Then they're seen as terrorists if they say anything about the depleted uranium, or rather if they resist that being spread in their country, and perhaps during the world war they will have treat us the same basically. So what is this? Several people are uploading this The internet is shut down in Iran, but not the revolution of Trump. They've cut them off from communicating, basically. And ISIS is state-sponsored terrorism. Alright, I wanted to say that about my previous broadcast that you can find on my channel. Try Something.Vegetarian. So, my broadcast about US psychological operations, PSYOPs, Cywar, and state-sponsored terrorism shows Obama, the video of Obama, in which he talks about training ISIL forces in Anbar province. Let's see if I can find it fast. See if this one works.
As I've said before, this aspect of our strategy was moving too slowly, but the fall of Ramadi has galvanized the Iraqi government. So with the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes in Anbar province. Speeding up training of ISIL forces, including steps I ordered last month. We're speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes in Anbar province. Steps I ordered last month. We're speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes in Anbar province. Steps
Okay, so how can they still talk about ISIS? Recently, the leader Bakr al-Baghdadi was supposedly killed for the 4th time, and then they had the DNA analysis in 5 minutes, and they also knew who would be the replacement. So we have to watch out for a false flag done by ISIS, I think. That could be in the cards, that could be their black op. And in that broadcast, I basically didn't mention the WTC demolition, Project Northwood's Gladio. These are black ops. You have white ops, grey ops, and black ops. And grey and black ops are covert, and white ops are overt. So grey and black ops are more secret, and the other one is open. And with these black ops, usually they're declassified after a while because the taxpayers have a right to know what their tax money was used on. That's the way it works in the USA. But then the rest of the world also knows about all their projects like MK Ultra and others. Project Cloverleaf, the Cancer Chemtrail Project, Project Paperclip, continuation of Nazi projects, Project Mockingbird, control of the mainstream media, and a number of others that I covered on 999 ProLogic. But that's an old blog, and the truth level is not as high as on my channel, Try Something.Vegetarian. So I can watch that 1 hour broadcast. People can watch it for themselves. I'm just showing what people have reported about this subject thus far, and then people can make up their own mind what can be done about it. and what can be done to prevent a world war over Iran. Other videos on my channel also are about this topic, also Facebook pages, for example, Never Again World War on Twitter, and Something.Vegetarian. Somethingvegetarian.wordpress.com has links. For example, Trump was born during a lunar eclipse. Could there be any connection to World War III, the 26th of December, when there's a solar eclipse? Many people call him the Orange Man, though he doesn't look very orange. Perhaps it's part of a psyop, Armageddon psyop, to build a third temple and rule the world from Jerusalem. What do I know? Global warming hoax equals eco-tax money scam, the carbon tax scam NASA Masons. Get informed and watch that video, Carbon tax scam on YouTube. Not the carbon tax scam, but carbon tax scam by the Clear Energy Alliance. Clean Energy Alliance, perhaps. Anyway, you'll find it, and it's also covered in this broadcast, so you can also watch this video on Something.Vegetarian. Trump had Epstein killed, claim investigated, and Katie Johnson's testimony on Trump. Civilian deaths by US drone strikes will no longer be reported. Trump changed Obama's law so that these drone murders or strikes will no longer be reported. Drone kills, basically. And then there's the false flag on the cancer oil tankers. And Bakr al-Baghdadi, Shimon Elliott Shimon. And the WTC, I don't know if I talked about these two PSYOPs, Black Ops in this broadcast, so that's why I thought I'd mention it in this one. And people can study that for themselves with Google, of course. Most people are pretty well informed already, but the fact that Obama called for training ISIL forces proves beyond any reasonable doubt that it's state-sponsored terrorism, okay? So what's this world coming to? This is crazy. You're not setting the right example. All these people being censored, but people that advocate a population reduction are not arrested. They're not even replaced with competent people in our government. Kissinger, for example, with his Global 2000, I think he's still at it as well. I've covered that quote several times. The illegal we do immediately, the unconstitutional takes a little longer. Disgusting. How can we allow these people to do these things to our fellow humans, innocent boys and girls and women and men? So you can't pretend that they're all terrorists and this is evil and I won't take part in it, not in my name. So prevent that world war, create universal peace, and check my channel for more information. I've denounced any attacks on innocent civilians, whether they're done by civilians or government officials that are responsible to be held accountable for their actions. So the government must work on a way to hold these people accountable for their actions, so that they can't do this to innocent civilians. The government's task is to protect and serve the tax-paying citizens. They're paid tax money for this purpose. not to reduce the global population and tyrannize people into submission with directed energy weapons. Power corrupts, fair trial is impossible, fair electronic voting is impossible because of this Tesla technology that was also used to crash these planes into the WTC. I've covered the scalar patents of Nikola Tesla on Try Something.Vegetarian as well. And download the videos as long as you can. Hopefully we can prevent World War III. Perhaps my and other people's videos have helped to do that. But people who talk about attacking Iran without talking about Putin's nuclear Poseidon torpedoes are a risk to themselves and others, you could argue. And perhaps they want to bring about annihilation. Perhaps they're controlled by the AI, by the voice of God weapons. Synthetic telepathy has been around since 1974. So trust no one, nothing is what it seems. Test everything you learn to find the truth. And try something vegetarian or vegan. Stay hydrated, use a tap water filter. And I hope they also make a PSYOP or black op or white op, an state-sponsored anti-terrorism is what I'm trying to say. Is that an idea, perhaps? You could see the government as a legal person, but I think that people with remote torture technology have hijacked this government, and the establishment, many Bilderbergers and others, advocate an illegal population reduction to 500 million, and I think that the governments around the world should first focus on arresting these people so that they don't annihilate us all in a world war. For example, I've done a broadcast recently about Lord Rothschild, for example. They supposedly funded all major wars since the Napoleonic Wars, and the way that works is Rothschild gets the money back plus interest from the person that wins the war. That's the deal they make. So this leads to wars, and that's not good for the people, especially if everybody without a Tesla plasma shield would die in a sort of end of the world PSYOP, Armageddon PSYOP, then that wouldn't be in their benefit. Yet it's possible they are tricked. Proverbs 24:6 or whatever, the former Mossad motto, by way of deception thou shalt do war. It's not good to deceive the people, and I think it also leads to bloodshed, and that it's in violation of the commandment thou shalt not kill, Lo Tirtzach in Hebrew. So these commandments are: one who knows of evidence must testify, so that's what I'm doing also in this video. Not to redeem a murderer from the death penalty for money, and in some countries you don't have the death penalty on murder. In the USA they do have that, death chair and injections, etc. So, and 3 is one who knows of evidence must testify, and not to convict anyone without a fair trial. And I think these laws are found in all constitutions around the world, basically. But that the law cannot be enforced when judges are extorted with directed energy weapons. Citizens Action Network and others claim that the Jesuits control all intelligence agencies, including Mossad, and they do that from behind the scenes. At the moment their leader is Arturo Sosa. I think he likes to be called Superior General. But I consider people that create a world war inferior, and evil, especially if they've planned extermination of 7 billion people. You could argue they're a million times worse than Hitler. So fascism is evil, and you could argue they're fascists. Whether they are Jews or non-Jews, they behave like fascists with their imperialism and dictatorialism, which are the worst tenets of fascism. You also have racism, homophobia, and anti-Semitism. So I'm anti-fascism, but I'm not anti-fascists. So I'm for reprogramming the people, for using peaceful solutions, behaving civilized, and using the system to create a perfect society in which we all live happily eternally. I denounce any attacks on innocent civilians. And I advocate catching the murderers and preventing their population reduction to 500 million. And I think these people are a threat to humanity that advocate a population reduction in writing. And there are also videos, for example, Professor Pianka, who advocates using Ebola resin, or basically he says he thinks it would be great if 7 billion of us would die, 90% of the world's global population, in his now finished book, The Vanishing Book of Life on Earth, or something that's still downloadable via cached pages, via universalpeace.jimdo.com. And now, after he wrote that and got a standing ovation, supposedly, we see all these Ebola children in Africa. People, hundreds or thousands, already died from Ebola, which is also patented by Rockefeller. The Ebola Lassa Tegmaya Chimera, some call it, which is injected, so that's the way they spread it, by injecting people with the killer vaccine. Okay. And Rothschild and others are working to open these borders to make it global, and they openly advocate a population reduction, so I don't see why they're not arrested. And if there are 15 scalar weapon countries, then some governments must be able to do something about it. So we can all think what we can do. Peaceful solutions, we can protest, for example, against the war, against government-sponsored terrorism, to bring the troops home alive, and against their carbon tax money scam run by the NASA Masons. So perhaps anybody could wear that yellow vest, go out there and protest. Besides that, we can boycott and use the mainstream media to do broadcasts about this subject or other topics to sway public opinion, have our own PSYOP, psychological operations. And white ops, of course. People can become a pedo hunter, for example. I haven't seen many pedo hunters in the Netherlands. And you could also be a pedo hunter without showing the pedo on video. Just handing the evidence into the police, which can also be done anonymously. So it's explained online how to be a pedo hunter. You simply pretend to be a young child and get the pedo to send a picture of his genitalia, and then you send that to the police as evidence with the chat remarks that the pedo made, and that way they can be put away a long time for the safety of your and other people's children. So I think that's the right thing to do, and perhaps the government is also doing this, but I doubt it. So it's possible they're using the government to protect the pedophiles and the people that are reducing the global population. Some call it the establishment, the pedo elite, what have you, Jesuits and Masons, Bilderberg and other elite members. Now we see the interview with Prince Andrew about Epstein. Don't know if he also mentioned Trump. I'd have to watch. I haven't watched the whole thing yet. But okay, you can find the videos on my channel. So I'm for peaceful legal solutions to these problems, and I think there are infinite ways to prevent a world war and create universal peace. But be prepared with the radiological water filter and storable food in a safe place. I think California is also not safe due to Putin's nuclear torpedoes. So safe countries would be neutral countries like Switzerland, and if they plan to rule the world from Jerusalem and are using the USA as a vehicle to rule the world from Jerusalem, Jesuits and Masons basically, then I've already mentioned other ways. They could have a third temple without a world war, the one-state solution idea, giving everybody a passport, equal rights in return for the land, from Dan to Beersheba, that's mentioned in the Bible. How the UN could do this is also a mystery. It's like it's set up for this world war and they've planned it all along, the Jesuit military order, posing as a religious order, etc., that are known for their inquisition and famous for their pedophilia because they paid more in the pedo cases than anybody else. And there's also a website, of course, universecreator.weebly.com, that also talks of accusations of cannibalism, etc. But of course, accusing them of this without evidence would be slander, so that would go too far, I guess. I can light my pipe, perhaps it helps to prevent the next ice age. That's the idea. Universal peace pipe. So this was the whole broadcast. What do I think about the shutting down of the internet? I wonder what would happen if people would do this in the Netherlands, for example. I think you'd see massive protests. Massive protests. So it's disabling communication in both ways, both directions. Does this mean they don't have email anymore either? No more Skype, or Skype still working? I could Google that. That's an interesting question, perhaps. So this would be major news, basically. Then I googled, does Skype use the internet? Well, I think so. Skype uses a proprietary internet telephony VoIP, voice over IP network, or is it something else? VoIP network called the Skype protocol. So it is internet telephony. The protocol has not been made publicly available by Skype, and official applications using the protocol are closed source. Part of Skype technology relies on the global index P2P protocol belonging to the Jolted Limited Corporation. Weird name also. We can see what's live. So we can also see Chinese streams somehow. So there may also be broadcasts from Iran. Perhaps this is about it. Prestige. Okay, well, I think this is it for this broadcast. For now. So if I'd have money and I'd live in Iran, I'd go to Switzerland or another safe place at this point, because they can let some Iranian, supposedly Iranian terrorist group, which could be state-sponsored terrorism, controlled by Jesuits and Masons via the Muslim Brotherhood or whatever, they could let them do an attack on the American troops, and Trump already made clear that will lead to obliteration of parts of Iran, also in the New York Times, as you can see in my previous broadcasts. And I think they've planned this, a world war to reduce the global population to 500 million and rule the world from Jerusalem. And that there will also be fake attempts on something on Trump and others on the Pope. I can check out who thought that. It'll take a while. Fake attempt on Trump 8-4. So I don't know if that means 8th of April. Trump's birthday, Seattle happens. Jurassic Liars 26 reports in his video. And I wrote Jurassic Pork in the works, ? GMO pork to reduce the global population. Prince Charles warned about a genetic Armageddon that could occur. Do not eat GMO. So the cattle gets Roundup Ready soy to sterilize the global population, to reduce the global population. So that's what they're eating when they're eating these cadavers. 37 people died of a GMO. It was contained in a food supplement. MSM covers it up with fake reports about 37 million dead honeybees. So that's Jurassic Liars on YouTube. And the Pope thing is covered by Eric John Phelps on Vatican Assassins. He may also be controlled opposition, now flat earther. And that's also a pretty big crowd. I think they have very interesting truths as well, the Earth, of course, is spherical, ball-shaped, oblong, oblique, some say. So it's because of its spinning, the fact that the Earth is spinning around on its own axis makes it sort of egg-shaped. A little bit egg-shaped, so it's not a perfect sphere, but it's closer to the truth than saying Earth is flat. Of course, then you could fall off somewhere, and Antarctica is huge, but it's not the end of the world. So that they've made that accessible only to scientists, that may be a good thing to preserve Antarctica and its wildlife, etc. The polar bears are not on Antarctica, perhaps the penguins are. There's a nice, what do you call it, IMAX theater. You know, the cinema with the huge screen. About Antarctica, I think. I saw that in Florida. It was pretty awesome with these penguins shooting underwater. Looks very beautiful. It's really awesome. I like that one. I also saw the Rolling Stones in IMAX theater. And Butterfly World in Florida is awesome as well. So at this time the sun is setting somewhere, it's rising somewhere at the same time. In some places you have snow and ice and people are skiing. In other places you have sunshine and 30, 40 degrees. People are swimming, sitting on the beach, sipping their piña coladas, virgin piña coladas, if they don't drink the Gans and killer alcohol. And many people are enjoying vegan products. I think the amount of vegans is increasing. I think they have a psyop that fits in with their burning the red heifer, Armageddon, cancer scale or Armageddon Moshiach. That some people may have been vegetarians in the past, but they're not vegetarian anymore. And then I would trust them a lot less. And being vegan is the healthiest way to live as long as you take enough vitamin B12. Because animal protein, especially animal fat, increase your cancer risk. And about 16 kilograms of grain are needed to produce 1 kilogram of cancer hormone cow meat, up to 16 kilograms of grain. So perhaps with GMO and hormones, etc., they can do it with 10 or less kilograms of grain. So if everybody would become vegetarian, the world's hunger problem would be solved. The rainforestsite.com, thehungersite.com, you can click for free. And for every click, sponsors give food, grain, etc. But isn't that just to keep the poverty alive? If you teach them how to irrigate their land and to filter water, etc., then they can produce food, etc. Well, perhaps it works with the hunger side, but not with the rainforest side. If they actually preserve some rainforest, you could argue that's a good thing. The rainforestsite.com. And about 11 children die every minute of starvation, but 14 children are born every minute, so the world's global population is still growing. Hurrah! And we're not overpopulated. Again, everybody, 7.5 billion people, everybody living on this planet today would fit into Australia, have their own piece of land, and more than enough to eat if we divide the Earth's wealth equally among men. There's a video about how to beat the New World Order. So these people want to eliminate 7 billion of us, 93% chance they also want to eliminate me and you and anybody else you see. because it's 93% of the global population. If they want to stabilize the global population around 500 million, which they make clear in their book quotes and also on their $1 million Georgia Guidestones. So that's their obvious goal, and they won't stop the Blue Force tracking, the home quarantines, until they've reached their goal. So we have to have enough food and water for 3 months. That means a radiological water filter. Obviously, it's going to be a nuclear event. Armageddon is not going to be fought with sticks and stones. And thus we have to prepare for this. And war, what is it good for? Absolutely money. So some people make money from this, like I've explained, Rothschild for example, and they get more power. They want to reduce the global population to a more controllable, enslavable number, because then they can control everybody with synthetic telepathy. Tesla also talked about the use of his technology to split the Earth. Of course, that has to be prevented, so that could be one argument to reduce the global population to 500 million, to be able to share this technology. We don't see the water-powered car, we don't see telluric power, we don't see sea energy instead of wind energy, even though it's more efficient, etc. Geothermal energy. Instead, we see the insane Dutch people planning to burn trees. So they've gone insane. Perhaps they're clinically insane. Perhaps it's the T4 nanobot or something that I've missed, because I use filtered tap water or something. The cancer chemtrails, for example, you need a plastic raincoat. They also spread their designer viruses in cancer chemtrails, so immunize yourselves with colloidal silver. And probiotics, replace the good bacteria in your gut that are really killed by colloidal silver, which is a mineral your body needs. Read up on it before online, and don't go over the maximum dosage. So don't drink a liter all at once. Perhaps that would kill a person. And the people that want to reduce the global population, well, perhaps they want everybody to commit suicide, take a pound of salt, or jump off a high building, or slash your wrists lengthwise, that you bleed out, etc. So these depleted uranium babies are real. Ebola spreading across borders will soon be real if these borders are not closed. People are not quarantined, but locked up with other Ebola patients in their huts or whatever. That website, urgbchoffman.wix.com, is about it. Ebola, Lassa, Tecmara, Chimera, Tulane University, etc. So these are not claims by me, but others with the sources. And it's a huge web page, so you can Google Wix Ebola, Ebola with the letter G attached, and then you'll find the page. urgbchoffman.wix.com/Ebola. Lately they've been hurting my knees with directed energy weapons. Broken kneecap perhaps or something. So I'll put my chair higher. Highest position. I'm rolling a J, and I have a doctor's prescription for the use of cannabis. Of course, it's illegal to block a working cure from the public, so cannabis must be legalized, and also cocaine and heroin must be legalized. For this reason, it is illegal to block a working cure from the public, especially when that's done to reduce the global population with chemicals, cancer-causing prescription drugs, thus enriching the medical cartel people beyond belief. Making a fortune of their illegal population reduction. Protect and serve, that's their supposed motto. So that's what they're supposed to do. Everybody knows that by now, probably. So, what do you controller agents think? Is this broadcast suitable for YouTube? And if not, why not? Well, I think I've advocated using legal means, so don't use any civil disobedience. I've advised Extinction Rebellion youth to only use legal methods, not to resort to illegal civil disobedience. Not to lower yourselves to their level, criminal. These people poisoning us all and the birds with the cancer chemtrails, etc. Don't give a hoot about the environment. They just want to reduce the global population and make a fortune. To enslave humanity with their synthetic telepathy machine that's been around since 1974. Clear from that Malech patent, the apparatus to remotely monitor and alter brainwaves. And they lie to you and to others and control the human mind and have programmed people with hypnosis during their sleep and via mainstream media, radio, the internet. Television still exists as well. Television, the drug of the nation, breeding ignorance and feeding radiation. There's a rap on YouTube, that's cool. No Blood for Oil is another song people can download. There are two versions at least. One is reggae, the other is more rock. And there are lots of good songs about cancer chemtrails, especially the Freeman Perspective has an awesome video where we can see Kissinger and Bush and even the Queen of England turning into a lizard and eating mouse, or what is it, a rat perhaps, or something like that. Of course, not real, but very well done. And was the other one appearing in that Charles Manson also in the cancer chemtrail plane? Hilarious. He may also be controlled the position, and you can study that online, but that doesn't mean they don't reveal truths that no one else reveals, mixed with lies and misdirection, misinformation, disinformation, to prevent any real resistance and round up the population. So that's the CIA's evergreen aviation, the cloud seeding patents, etc. Project Cloverleaf, and you don't see that in the Freeman video. Perhaps he has explained it in another video. I could study his channel and everything. But for now I can look at Blackstone Intelligence and other websites. And I think that the fake alt-right is not real resistance. And that there are paid protesters, that's proven beyond any reasonable doubt. I still haven't checked if it's true that Extinction Rebellion members were not gassed and the Yellow Vests are, but it would be logical if they're youth movements that they're not tear gassed. And I also saw this weekend that they used a water cannon on the Yellow Vests, which I think is tantamount to murder because it's way too cold. It's almost freezing in Europe. Perhaps it was freezing in France and it was way too cold to use that water cannon. But apparently they think differently about it. They want to reduce the global population. And I also saw the Cancer Tetracycle cops arrest 2 cute girls. And I was wondering all the time, how do they know that they're Yellow Vest protesters if they're not wearing a yellow vest? And a reporter fell. Perhaps he was pushed by a police officer. And there might be just one bad Cancer Tetracycle cop that blinded these protesters, basically. So there are several protesters that are now blind on one eye. They've lost eyesight. So that's regrettable, and they should make new laws or better grenade launchers for their tear gas. Perhaps they can get some on the dark web or whatever if they still haven't managed to roll that up somehow. So I think it's stupid to have an illegal gun when they have the remote torture technology and through-the-wall radar, etc. And perhaps they only have the dark web to catch real terrorists, etc. So I advise people to refrain from using the dark web. I also have my doubts about the Bitcoin, if it really works. Also, if they all claim it works, then it remains to be seen. So I cannot afford to go to prison, so I cannot afford to have any illegal weapons, and there are many legal alternatives, like little mini crossbows and what have you. Well, some people use a baseball bat or an axe or a golf club or something like that. Though if it's somebody with a gun that enters your abode, then perhaps it's best to leave and to call against the police. I think that's the official procedure that we're supposed to follow. In the US, people have a right to self-defense, etc. It's clear. So people can check their local codified laws to comply with those. They're all online. Though I think practically nobody that's not a judge or a lawyer can quote me one codified law, one real law that we find in these law books. We have consumer rights. And these consumer rights are applicable to all. So if somebody sells you a product that does not live up to their description of that product, you have a right to a refund. And consumer right might also differ from country to country, so that's in the Netherlands, but I think that that's also the same in the US. On eBay, for example, if a product doesn't work, or they sell it as a working product, etc., then you can get a refund. And sometimes eBay pays if the seller doesn't pay. For example, I had a fake watch and eBay helped me with that. It was sold as a real Casio Rangeman. And it was pretty expensive. And the first picture was a picture of a real one, a real Rangeman. And the second and third were fake, so I asked, is it the one on the first picture? Yeah, the seller wrote back. But no, it was the fake. And eBay advised me to destroy the watch. And I got the refund, so that's cool. So that's why I always buy on eBay, basically. Well, not always. Depends, of course. If a product is much cheaper somewhere else, then I consider buying it there. But usually most of the stuff that I buy on eBay. There's tremendously awesome stuff from China, products. Incredibly cheap and yet usable and functional, and often also beautiful, so I have no reason not to buy products from China, because the communist Chinese government is not equal to all people of China. China is huge, with over 1 billion people living there, 1.4 billion like in India, and the US is only 1/4 of that amount. So that's the third biggest country qua number of people living there. So that's important rights for people in China. But I find the protest pretty fake. It has to do with human rights, I think. So they can also get organized. I don't know if they want to make a democratic China, make China more democratic rather than communist. But I do know that they have the right to protest. That's in the Chinese constitution as well. So non-violence is best. It has to do with doing justice, not lowering ourselves to the level of criminals. So if the government is criminal, it doesn't mean that we also should refer to criminal activity. So sitting 1 day in prison is a long time already. Alright, but now I'm really gonna do other stuff, so thank you all for watching. Like and subscribe and share this video on your timeline. I really need, I think it's more subscribes, 1,000 subscribers to be able to live broadcast again. And I think people can also always unsubscribe from channels. I don't know for sure, but I think you can. And every click we make is registered basically. I don't believe or trust the YouTube counters, but it's clear that they are registering every click. So if we like or dislike a video, every search we do with Google, that's all registered. In that way they build up a personality. They may even use this to determine whether you are a potential terrorist or not. So we could argue ethically we shouldn't vote, we shouldn't use the YouTube system of likes and dislikes, etc. We shouldn't be part of the circus ourselves. Making clear that we don't consent to their illegal population reduction, the use of directed energy weapons, the use of cancer cell phone radiation with unsafety standards that are clearly unsafe and that kill millions of people. 1 in 2 people get cancer according to Medscape.com, so that's 50% of the population. So I think that should ring a bell. But people that want to reduce the global population think that's a good thing, not a bad thing. And if people cannot press charges, then the government's criminal for that reason as well. People have a right to press charges of incitement to commit genocide, for example, against these people with book quotes that prove they want to reduce the global population beyond any reasonable doubt. And I think that's the government's job, so you all can do that now. Probably the government is the only one watching this anyway. Except for a handful of smart, good people and others that ran into it somehow. So, single ladies are still welcome. I'm still totally alone in my house in Meidrecht. Single dude from Netherlands. Smile. Okay. Can I think of something more to say? Universal peace is on its way anyhow, in theory. This is my chair in the highest position. I could light my joint with my laser, but perhaps I should do a separate broadcast of it. Well, why not? I can try to find the thing. I have to use my flashlight to find the thing. See if it still has battery. So next to Spike Eau de Toilette, I bought another 100% natural Eau de Toilette. This is Oriflamme. Esprit Vetiver Eau de Toilette Eau Essentiel Bio Federer Spirit Eau de Toilette with organic essential oils. I think it's very reasonable, but Spike is more original, I think, with salvia or something in there. It's special. I like spike. Oh yeah, I have my laser. Okay. See if it still works. Not. Okay, so I have to recharge the battery then. So I can't light it at the moment. That's weird because I haven't used it in a long time. But that's exactly why. So the battery drains also if you don't use it. So time for the undrainable battery. I remember seeing John Hutchison material about undrainable battery, also sort of teleporting things or something. But I don't know if that's real, so there are other sources that I found about the undrainable battery combination of chemicals, elements that produce energy continuously without having to recharge. And I think until we have that undrainable battery, robotism will not take flight. And I also think that these Talon robots should, the Project Swords Talon robots should be beaten into plowshares already, that they're in violation of Asimov's laws of robotics, that the human race shouldn't do that to themselves. And I can read these Asimov's laws of robotics to close this broadcast, if I can find it fast. I can just use Google. Three laws of robotics. The three laws are: a robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. A robot must obey the orders given it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. So they should be designed to do the opposite of what they have designed them to do. So in fact they're just little mini tanks that can shoot people from a mile away or very long distances. So these are robots that can harm and kill people, designed to do so. So they're definitely in violation of the three laws of Asimov. Mr. Asimov, Dr. Professor Asimov, I'd have to Google it. So yeah, I think running away from the truth will only make things worse, that we're part of this reality whether we want to be or not, and things will get better at a certain point in the time-space continuum, so stay alive, do self-hypnosis so you never kill yourself, and the truth defines reality. Test everything you learn, knowledge is power. Thank you all for watching. Please like, subscribe and share this important video and other important videos on my channel Try Something.Vegetarian, and see you all next time on Try Something Vegetarian. Peace. To all the girls I've loved before and the ones I will love in the future, of course.